List of Ontario's COVID-19 hotspots.
We are seeing some concerning trends in York that required us to take action.
Reaction from businesses there as a surge in cases brings the region back to a modified stage 2. Plus,
it's over now. The end has come.
36 years after Christine Jassup's murder, her mother speaks about finally getting closure. What we know so far about the man now suspected of killing the 9-year-old girl. And hundreds of new buses and dozens of new streetcars. How the city plans to pay for this transit proposal after the financial struggles of the pandemic. Good evening, I'm Talia Ricci. Starting Monday, York Region will join Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa in a modified Stage 2. That means no gyms, movie theaters, or indoor dining at restaurants. It's all because of a sharp rise in COVID-19 infections there. Lorenda Redicop now with the latest.
This Markham restaurant will remain open while they still can. Restrictions to indoor dining come into effect on Monday.
We're hoping that, we're able to stay afloat. It's no doubt difficult for us. We're prepared to make changes that we need to, but I think there's a lot of unknowns right now, and we're really just looking for more support, whatever we can get from provincial, federal level.
I hate doing this, my friends. I hate this.
The Premier says York's cases per 100,000 climbed to 39, similar to the other hotspots, Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa. The transmission rate is above the high alert level of 2.5%, and critical care admissions are up.
We are seeing some concerning trends in York that required us to take action. So it's not necessarily what the numbers are from one day to the next, but the trends.
York's medical officer says the age of people being infected is getting older, no longer mainly people under 40. He says at times it's been Vaughan with many cases, then Markham and also Richmond Hill. He says the region has 12 long-term care homes in an outbreak and 23 workplace outbreaks.
Often employees come in without having been properly screened out, so they may have mild symptoms. The other areas, of course, are lunchrooms, where people take off their masks.
Unlike when restrictions were announced for Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa, York will have an entire weekend before the rules take effect.
Go out there, please, support these restaurants. Anyone in York Region, you got your local restaurant, support them. Order takeout, do whatever it takes.
The opposition questioned the safety of that message.
Is he inviting people to go out in droves to the restaurants over the weekend, to help shore up those businesses and to help them get rid of their inventory? That's just ridiculous.
The medical officer urges people to stick to takeout and activities that won't increase the transmission. Back at that restaurant in Unionville, they're among the lucky ones, with both a patio and heaters to warm up customers and business, at least for now. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police are asking for the public's help to locate a missing 14-year-old boy. Tayshawn Bascombe was last seen at Union Station getting on a northbound train on the University line just before 6:30 tonight. He was wearing a blue jacket, gray Roots hooded sweater, and carrying a black backpack. Tayshawn is non-communicative and he's hearing and visually impaired. Police are concerned for his safety. As police continue to investigate the murder of Christine Jassup, her family is speaking out tonight about Calvin Hoover. He's the man police say murdered the 9-year-old girl in 1984. CBC News has uncovered new details about Hoover, including where he spent the last years of his life. John Lancaster reports.
After 36 years of waiting, Janet Jassup says there's finally some relief.
It's over now. The end has come, and we have now some closure, and that was very, very important to get.
But also betrayal. For weeks in the fall of 1984, as volunteers and police searched for the missing girl, when her remains were finally located, even as she was laid to rest, Calvin Hoover, a family friend, was often close by.
He had gone out on searches for Christine in the initial disappearance. He was at the house, he was at the funeral, he was at the house for the wake that night. And There's a lot of anger and betrayal.
Chief, please go ahead.
Just yesterday, police revealed Hoover was responsible for Jassup's murder. DNA recently tied him to the crime scene. Yet during the 36-year investigation, he flew under police radar, never once being questioned about Jassup's disappearance. Now the prime suspect, that poses more issues.
It has obviously generated many more questions, and we are asking for the public's help as we look for information about Calvin Hoover in an effort to create a timeline of his whereabouts and the last moments of Christine's life.
Here's what we've uncovered. In 1984, when Jassup disappeared from her Queensville home, Hoover was living in a townhouse complex in Toronto's North End. By the early 90s, he had moved to a house on this street in Oshawa. By 2012, he and his wife were living here in Port Hope, Ontario. On August 16, 2015, he killed himself at the home.
He was living probably with the guilt, and around 2015, he couldn't take it any longer. I'm not there, I don't know. I'm just guessing. Yeah, but how could you live with this for so long and not have it come out in one way or another?
CBC News has learned that Hoover also had other, less significant burdens. He and his wife had declared bankruptcy 3 times since the 90s. There was a brush with the law, too. These are photos from his May 1996 arrest for impaired driving. He was fined, but never jailed. But how he managed to abduct and kill Christine Jassup still remains unclear. The calm at the child's gravesite today, at odds with the investigation that continues to swirl 36 years after her death. John Lancaster, CBC News, Toronto.
There's new video tonight of the murder of a man outside a Rexdale mosque. It's prompting renewed calls for police to charge the suspect with a hate crime. The security camera video shows a man walking near Mohammed Safis as he was sitting outside the International Muslims Organization mosque last month. The suspect in the top left-hand corner of the screen approaches Safis from behind and stabs him. Safis died a short time later. Police have charged 34-year-old Gilherm von Nudegem with first-degree murder. Von Nudegem had shared what appears to be content from a neo-Nazi group in social media posts. Today, the Prime Minister said he's concerned about what he calls a growing threat from white supremacist groups in Canada.
Our intelligence agencies remain extremely concerned with the safety of Canadians from violent ideologies, and particularly white supremacy and intolerance. We are going to continue to work very hard to keep Canadians safe.
Toronto police said last month that they will lay a hate crime charge if the evidence is there. An international student from South Korea is alleging her boss secretly recorded video of her in the washroom at the restaurant where she worked. She spoke to Ali Chiasson today in hopes it will encourage victims of similar crimes to come forward.
And it wasn't like a tiny camera, like a spy camera. It was a personal cell phone.
Yeah. This former employee of Mine Sushi showed up to work early one day in September. She went to the washroom to change into her work uniform and looked up towards the vent, where she says she found a cell phone with the lens pointed toward her. She took it down. So I turned on the screen and I could see it is recording. There was like about six videos of the washroom, and I watched 2 of them, and it was me. She wants to remain anonymous because she says she feels traumatized and worries about retribution by her former boss, whose cell phone it was. She says she could tell by the photos. His wife's picture was there and his dogs are there, so I was sure that it is his phone. She confronted the owner and his wife, who also works at Mine's downtown location. They attempted to blame the planted phone on a customer. She came to me and said, "Oh, my husband left his phone on the wooden shelf in the woman's washroom, and some customer put his phone between the ventilator, and it doesn't make sense.
She filed a complaint with the Toronto police, who have now charged 47-year-old Young-Soo Park with one count of secretly observing/recording a person in the nude. Young-Soo Park is just the owner of the downtown location. No one from the Mine chain of sushi restaurants responded to our request for comment.
What do you hope comes from this?
I don't want to make another victim.
Young-Soo Park appears in court in February 2021. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
We're now learning that 9 more yearbook entries were tampered with at the same Pickering school where a black student's message was changed to a racial slur. Joshua Telemac's tribute to his grandmother was switched to a racist comment, referring to a gorilla that was killed at a Cincinnati zoo. Durham Regional Police Service are now investigating how that happened and say several more students have come forward. The 9 students at St. Mary Catholic Secondary School are a mix of male and female students from various cultural backgrounds. Police say one of the 9 additional entries changed had racist undertones. A female student was criticized about her body image, while one male student was criticized for his grades. The school said it is working with the investigation to ensure that all individuals responsible are held accountable. Today, the mayor endorsed a proposal by the TTC to begin the process of adding hundreds of new buses to its fleet, along with dozens of new streetcars. And while they wouldn't be ready to go for years, the mayor says we've got to start the process now to avoid having our transit system become outdated. Greg Ross has more.
Plan released today is a roadmap on making sure that we can have the new vehicles that we need when we need them.
The TTC is looking to buy hundreds of new vehicles rolling out in 2022 and 2023 at a time when many believe they will be in high demand if and when we get through this pandemic.
We know the TTC was already overloaded a year ago, and that's something that's tended to have been forgotten. The subway was packed. People were complaining all the time that there needed to be more buses, more streetcars.
The proposal calls for 600 new buses, 300 of which will be hybrids and 300 electronic buses, 60 new streetcars, 13 paid for by the city and 47 paid for by the other 2 levels of government, and 70 new Wheel-Trans buses. The city says it's committed to paying 40% of the proposal.
So we'll be pursuing quite aggressively this funding that we need from the other governments, but we thought it was very important for us to put our money on the table first, as it were.
The mayor says it's a calculated risk that he believes will pay off based on preliminary discussions he's had with the other 2 levels of government. But when asked about it today, Premier Ford didn't seem ready to commit.
I need the federal government to support us, step up. We've committed to build 4 subway lines. We need the federal support. We can't do this alone.
This transit advocate says it's a good strategy by the city.
It puts 2 governments, both of whom have elections in the next few years, on notice that it's time for them to not just talk about helping the city and doing good things for transit and all that stuff, but actually contributing to it.
The proposal is widely supported by City Council, although some councillors have concerns about whether the city can afford this at a time when the city continues to fall deeper into debt because of the pandemic.
We are $1.5 billion behind because of COVID. And being able to write checks, you want to make sure that there's money in the bank to cash it. And I'm not implying that we don't have it, but as we make many of these decisions, we need to make sure that we're on stable grounds to make them.
The TTC also announced that it's going to be recalling about 180 employees who were laid off because of the pandemic. They're scheduled to return to work in the first week of November, and that will bring the TTC close to its full workforce, not exactly where it was pre-pandemic because there was some job loss because of attrition. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
How the city contracts out its snow removal operations was flagged today by Toronto's Auditor General. They found the city potentially squandered $31 million to contractors over the last 5 years. That includes some $24 million spent on standby payments, meaning money paid to contractors who didn't actually clear any snow. The other $7 million was due to the city not using GPS data to make sure the work was getting done. The Auditor General will put forward 22 recommendations to make sure Toronto is getting its money's worth and asks that the city do a cost-benefit analysis to see if outsourcing winter road maintenance makes sense compared to what a city-run team could do. Right now, it takes $90 million a year from Toronto's budget.
As movies are delayed, as productions are halted, what is the future of all film going to look like? And in Canada, what is it going to look like?
Still ahead tonight, my interview with Amanda Paris, host of CBC Arts Exhibitionists. The final season kicks off tonight right after our show. We'll have more on what you can expect. Plus,
clear skies tonight and some cool temperatures moving in. I'm meteorologist Colette Kennedy. Some patchy frost possible, but a nice Saturday on tap. I'll have your forecast coming up after the break.
to the cheers of onlookers, salmon are making their way upstream right now in rivers across the province. This was the scene today along the Humber River in Etienne Brule Park. You can watch the big fish try and sometimes fail to reach their spawning grounds upstream. It's also become something of a spectator sport.
My
My first time, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. It's amazing. I've seen too many already. I've lost count. They're huge, though.
According to the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, you can also catch great views of the Salmon Run at Morningside Park and Arundel Park. Colette Kennedy joins us now with a look at your weekend forecast. And Colette, I'm crossing my fingers that this weekend's a good weekend to head to a park.
Thanks, Talia. Well, as we're heading into the weekend, mostly clear skies, at least in most cases. So we are talking about some cool conditions. So very similar, at least for southwestern Ontario, to last night. We are looking at some cool temperatures and a frost advisory, and a few more areas including Windsor for tonight. So those temperatures getting very close to, if not down to freezing. Patchy frost development then we will be seeing. So some crops certainly will be vulnerable tonight, and anything that you can protect that you want to, this is your heads up in terms of wanting to take care of things. So your daytime temperatures, well, these are the temperatures from this morning, because I did just want to illustrate that we had some areas that we saw the patchy frost development last night because we had some very chilly readings as of this morning. Tomorrow morning, cooler temperatures will be stretching over towards the GTA, where we're going to be seeing some of those temperatures dipping down to numbers like that. Very similar. Where you're closer to the lakeshore, you get protected a bit better. So we'll be seeing maybe 4 or 5 degrees where you are towards the downtown core, but just get a little bit further towards the 407. We're going to be seeing those temperatures close to freezing tonight. Areas where things are slightly different, though, in the lee of Georgian Bay and Lake Huron, we get into a bit of precipitation, some cloud cover there. But elsewhere, you see the clear skies that we're going to be having through the overnight hours. Another place where we're seeing some lake effect here is right there towards southern tip of the Golden Horseshoe, so around the Niagara region towards tomorrow morning. A little bit of precipitation, yes, some rain showers there. Elsewhere, though, you're starting off with sunshine through the GTA, and that's how the day's looking. A few passing clouds into the afternoon. Potentially, yes. Otherwise, it is sunshine through Saturday. Things change, though, as we go into Saturday evening. Southwestern Ontario, you're going to be feeling it first. But Saturday evening through Saturday night and into Sunday, the cloud cover really is taking over. So second half of the weekend is very different. And into Toronto, by the time we get towards Saturday night into Sunday, well, Sunday evening into Monday is really when the showers start moving in. So that's really when I anticipate we're getting into some of the wet weather. So don't worry so much for the weekend. Okay, overnight tonight, there are some of the cooler temperatures I was mentioning. And yes, we're about seasonal for the daytime highs in terms of what we'll have for you on Saturday. A look at what those temperatures look like. Hey, at least the precipitation keeps the reading up a little bit there into St. Catharines. Again, sunshine and 13 degrees for Saturday. Sunday, the cloud cover moves in just to make that clear. It looks like the precipitation holds off till Sunday night into Monday for Toronto. I just want to make sure I was illustrating that. And so as we go towards Monday, 12 degrees with some wet conditions, still some cloud cover into Tuesday, and a chance of bringing those showers back in as we go towards Wednesday as well. Talia.
Thanks, Colette.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
The 6th and final season of CBC Arts Exhibitionists premieres tonight at 11:30. I caught up with host Amanda Paris about some of the themes explored in the show and the Toronto ties.
Thanks so much for joining us. And this is a really big night for CBC Arts Exhibitionists, and the format of this season is a little different than the last 5 seasons. Can you tell me about the themes that viewers can expect to be explored?
Well, we realized that the whole world has changed and it was time for us to make a change as well too. We normally give a sort of whirlwind tour of what's happening in the Canadian art scene in every episode, but this time we decided each episode we would focus in and drill down on one particular medium at a time. So tonight it's going to be film. Future episodes will be about architecture, theater, street art, dance, and fashion. And in each of these episodes we ask a particular question. Normally the question has to do with what's going on in the world right now. How is this industry dealing with the global pandemic, and how are they dealing with this moment of cultural reckoning? So it feels very timely, very urgent, and I really hope that people enjoy the conversations that arise from it.
And let's talk a bit about tonight's episode. Why do you think that discussing the future of Canadian film is important, and who are some of the key voices that we should expect to hear from?
Well, I mean, it's something that anyone in the industry and anyone who is a fan of the industry is thinking about as theaters close all around us, as movies are delayed, as productions are halted. What is the future of all film going to look like, and in Canada, what is it going to look like? So, you know, we have a documentary with Cameron Bailey where we talked to him about what it was like to plan this year's Toronto International Film Festival in the midst of a global pandemic, and he, you know, unequivocally says this was the most challenging year of his career. It was such a huge hurdle to think about what this festival can look like without all of the things that we normally associate with making it so glitzy and glammy.
And as you mentioned, you know, there's so much happening in the world. We're having big conversations about diversity, about what the future will look like with the pandemic, and art is almost this, you know, way that we can explore some of the things that we're addressing right now. What are some of the conversations that you hope are sparked when people watch these deep dives into creativity?
Maybe this is a moment of pause where we can say, maybe we can do this differently. Maybe we can do this better. And so I hope that audiences think about that as well too. Like, instead of thinking about this in terms of panic and how do we keep everything going, maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe this is a moment that we were supposed to have where we hit the pause button, which we rarely get to do in our society.
Well, thanks so much, Amanda. I know I'm looking forward to watching it, and all the best in your final season.
Thank you so much.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks for watching. Maribel Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. Have a great weekend, everyone. Good night.